I hope you can now see the screen of Business Central. So what you see here is the application. We took a sneak peek of this one in the last webinar on a very high level. So like I said, today's a little deeper dive into the application and its modules. So let's talk about a day in the life of any business, right? So any business thrives on sales transactions, right? Like sales orders, and based on the sales orders and demands, um, we look into other aspects of the business like procurement, inventory, financials, and so forth. So I feel, maybe today's demo, we can start with the sales order as the basis, and then we can flow down, moving into other aspects, right? So we'll start with the sales order. So if I go into the sales orders page here, so it's a quick way to see the list of sales orders. I can even bookmark this like I showed you the last time. And I'm now in the sales orders page. It shows currently the list of all the ongoing sales orders with a good status indicator, whether it's released versus it's still open to be confirmed. So you can turn on those flags, depending on the actual status of the order. And you can now see the list of all the sales orders that have been ongoing in the company right now. Okay. I'll start with creating a quick new sales order. So it's as easy as it is, like this, that you click on the new button and then you pick a customer. So let's say that the first customer on this list. And the moment you pick the customer, again, from a navigational perspective, the system is giving you a lot of analysis on what's happening on this customer, right? You can see on the right side, there are some links that provides quick details of what's happening with the customer. For example, ongoing sales invoices, ongoing sales orders, that is currently right now about 8 documents. The documents that we already posted as invoices, shipments, and so forth. So this gives you a quick analysis for you to navigate and then maybe do a quick check before you place this new order that you're working on, right? And also some financial balances that you can see at the bottom here. Like what's the credit limit that we have set for this customer, the total balance that we have, and so forth. And this page is also something that you can customize to add your own KPIs about the customer that you would like to know before you place an order. So we'll just do a quick example here. So I'm going to just pick up an item. Let's say we want to sell, we got an order from this customer for this item, Paris chairs, assuming this is a company that does a distribution on chairs or it does a manufacturing on chairs. So we pick an item, which is this Q code, and then you can also say on which location this has been requested from. So let's say it's from the main warehouse. You have the option to set multiple locations in the system. Your business can be operating at various geographical locations, which can become your location codes in the system, or even in the same geographical area. If you want to segregate your warehouse into multiple sections, you can create also as location codes. It's completely up to how you'd like to configure the system, which is where consultants can help you, giving you the best recommendations on how you can configure the system, right? So let's say this customer has ordered for about 15 chairs. And then there's a lot of other information that you can input on the line, like what's the sales amount. The amount can come from a sales price list that we can configure, again, trying to make it very automated as possible. And then you can set the dates on when the planned shipment date and so forth, right? Once the sales order has been created, there are other operational steps that you can do. I won't be able to go into every single detail, but I want to give you a sneak that you are able to email this document as a confirmation, or you can print it out as a confirmation back to the customer. And then once it's been confirmed, you can release it, right? So the status now is changed to release. So here's a sales order that's released on our system right now, which is order number 12, ending with order number 12. Okay. Now, if I let me just go back to the order just to show you another navigation feature. So on the line here, which is that item. Just by clicking on the item, you should be able to see what's the quantity that's required and what's available right now in our inventory. Right now, it says minus 15, which means, we really have no quantity available in the system right now. So you need to be either procuring it or manufacturing it. So that takes us to our next uh, operational step, which is to do the demand planning for one or more sales orders. So you can either procure it or manufacture it, right? So now we are slowly moving towards the inventory aspect of the system on how do we procure this item. And before we do that, a quick sneak peek into the um, items module or the items listing. You can see there are all the items that's been showing up. And this is the item that we have ordered on the line, the Paris guest chair. It shows quantity on hand as 6. Okay, this is because this is in a different location, not the main location. So the system still shows that it is minus 15, which is like no quantity available on that location, because this is in a different location and not the main location, right? So you are able to do a lot of analysis from the items master. It's just not a listing of your items, but you're able to drill down to the quantity. You have it on hand, under which location you have it. If you have any bin management, you're able to see on a bin level and so forth. So there are a ton of reports that you can run from the main menu, that you can do some analysis on that specific item. Okay. Also on the right side, which is what we call as the fact box, it gives you quick facts about that item, just like what we saw in the sales order. Okay. So obviously we don't have any items from the location. So let's move towards the demand planning and procuring this item. So what would you typically do in this situation? You're going to place a purchase order. Let's say you're a distribution company. You need to know what sales orders are ongoing, and then you would typically be looking into each order and then doing a bulk purchase order. Now, where can this system help you better is to automate this process, right? So instead of you doing this manually, you can automate this by running this function called requisition worksheet. The system is going to run the report in the background and help you suggest what you need to be procuring based on the orders that are released at this point, right? So this is the worksheet where you can run a plan. So I say calculate plan, and then you can run between two planning dates. Let's say you want to plan for inventory between the start of this month and the end of this month. You can put the planning dates. You can include a forecast. You can exclude or don't include a forecast. So this is where the AI tools come in picture, which we will be talking about in the next set of webinars, which will give you more insights on what you need to be procuring on top of what's already released on the sales orders in the system. And then you can filter to one item or a group of items and so forth. So let's make it simple. Just plan it across all the items for all the orders that are released right now. So I'm not filling in any details here. I click on OK to this. And the system is looking at all the items, and it will suggest you what you have to be procuring. And there we go. That's the one line that at least that we wanted to order, right? So had we had more sales orders with low inventory, you would have seen multiple lines here, but this is just that one item that we need to procure. So here we go. So it says, here's the item number for this location. You need 15 based on the order quantity. And how does the system know how much to order? Like what is a number? So there could be a minimum order quantity, or they could be as exactly as the sales orders quantity. There could be a lot of planning parameters that will be dependent for your business, and all of these can be configured very well under the item setup, right? If I quickly drill down to the items setup, I want to just quickly show you that there is a replenishment area where you can mention all of those parameters. Sorry, the planning area here. So you can mention your reordering point, your reorder quantity point, what's the reordering policy, and so forth. So there's a lot of parameters based on what the system can suggest you. This one right now is set to be planned based on released sales order. So it comes with the exact quantity as what we need. So from here, you have the option to accept this or reject this because it's simply a suggestion, right? So let's say we carry out this message. So this is a purchase order, and you want to carry out creating the purchase order for the suggestion, and you run that, and you can now see that line is processed. So what has happened is a purchase order is automatically created. If I now drill down to the purchase order, now we are moving slowly from the inventory and the planning section towards the procurement section, right? And this is exactly what I meant by the fluidity between your modules in the system as how the system updates the different areas in the system. Now, if I move towards the purchase order section, I can see that there is a newly created purchase order. I'm looking at the latest order number, which is the 010. And if I open it up, I should be able to see that same item for that location and the quantity that we wanted to order. The cost automatically comes from a cost sheet that you can also configure depending on the vendor. And there's a lot other factors as well. Like you can create a cost sheet based on quantity ranges by a specific vendor, by currencies, and a lot of other factors. And the cost is picked up from that setup that you would do, making it more easier for you to have the cost showing up automatically. So everything looks pretty good on this purchase order. And if you'd like to proceed with this, all that you have to do is print or send. I prefer sending it because we live in a digital world. We can click on the send button, which now integrates to the Microsoft Outlook. Again, here's where the Outlook suite, the Microsoft suite comes in picture. It looks up your Outlook account, and then it creates a purchase order to be sent via email, right? So an email is automatically created, and you are able to set up how you'd like to send the email. You can have a canned text saying like, "Dear vendor, I'd like to purchase this item," with a PO attached. So there's a bunch of configuration that you can also do on the email communication to the external parties. Okay. So once when the purchase order becomes acknowledged and confirmed, you can internally release it, letting your team know that this is a PO that you're expecting to receive, right? Um, so order is good to go. And the next steps would be, in order to fulfill the sales order, you would have to receive this order and invoice this order. So you can do receiving on the PO directly. So again, depending on the size of your team, whether you have a slim team or a fully fledged team that has their own segregation of their duties, you can set the system to work accordingly. Let's say you have a slim team, just one person doing everything. You can operate everything on the same page, right? You can create a PO, you can send it. You can also receive the quantities being on the same page without having to go into another functionality, which is pretty well designed. And I can say that comparing to other ERPs that I've worked in the past, where you have other pages to go into, it becomes a little complicated. This one is more intuitive for you. So you're able to receive the order right from the same page. But if you are a full-fledged team where you have your buyers as a separate team and your receiving as a separate team, then you have a segregation of duty where you can create something called as a warehouse receipt, which will be a separate document having its own functionalities. To use it with a barcode scanner, you can have the option to enter a lot number, a serial number, and it can mask the financial information. So whatever that you'd like to have the receiving person to do is a separate function by itself, right? That you can also turn on that functionality. So this is where we can configure the system for you depending on the requirement. So I posted the receipt, and I can see on the line right now, if I scroll down, the quantity received is updated. So this is good to go. So now what happens to the inventory? If I go back to the inventory list, I should be seeing an increase in quantity. It's now 21, which was earlier 6. So your inventory is now automatically updated. It is good to go. for fulfilling the sales order. So before we move on to the sales orders, I just like to show you a couple of additional steps on the procurement side to close the loop before we move on to the sales side, right? So going back to the purchase order, again, I don't have a shortcut here. It's pretty quick and easy to create a shortcut if I need to, right? By bookmarking it. And from a financial perspective, now here's where we move from procurement and warehousing to the financial piece, which is for invoicing, right? So now wearing a hat of an accountant, we can pretty much do the invoicing on the same screen. Again, you don't need to have a separate function to do the invoicing. If you're a slim team, you can enter the invoice number right on the same screen. You can double check the quantities, the dollar amounts through the typical three-way matching. And if everything is looking good, you're able to post the invoice or record the invoice in the system with the click of a button. We can do this even better for you by incorporating what we call as the OCR technology, where if your vendor is sending an invoice to an email, we can integrate the email to read the invoice from the email and automatically record that invoice in the system, which is the optical character reading. So it cuts down one step manually that you will do what I'm showing you right now, where the invoice is automatically created through the system when the email is received from the vendor. So again, completely depending on what your requirements are, how many orders that your invoices you're getting, we have some functionalities that we can turn on to do those functions for you. Invoices posted. Want to take a look into the invoice? I can say yes or no. Typically, we don't need to take a look into the invoice. It's the same information. But what has happened in the background is your financials have been updated. You know, their payables is updated, your inventory is updated, and this is where your GL balances also get updated. So the financial piece takes care at the point when the postings happen in the system. So the last step to close the loop on the purchasing side is the payments. So let's say you're ready to pay the vendor for whatever that you've procured. You can run this function called payment journals to prepare a payment. And this is more like a worksheet where you can let the system to suggest what payments that we owe to any vendor by running this function called suggest vendor payments, where you can enter some inputs like what is the due date by which you want to pay all your vendors, what's the method by which you want to pay. There are options that are integrated in the system, including printing a computer check or making an electronic payment, including ACH or EFT. You can also record a manual check, if that's the way you run your business. So I want to keep it to electronic payment just to show, because this is now the electronic payment age where a lot of people are started using the ACH and the EFT payments as opposed to doing the traditional check printing. So I'd like to show you a quick sneak peek of this. And you can also filter to one specific vendor you'd like to pay, or even better, just open up the filter so the system suggests you everything that you owe to all the vendors, right? So these are all the lines that are open. It shows the list of every invoice by the vendor, the dollar amount, and you have the option to pick and choose which vendors that you really want to pay. So let's say these invoices you want to save it for later and not pay it right now. You can remove it from the suggestion. So the system will re-suggest you the next time when you run it. And let's say I want to just pay the First Step Consultants company. So I'm going to also delete this line. And there are about 4 transactions. So from here, to make a payment, it's 2 steps, right? So you can send a remittance advice to the vendor via email, which is the best option. So when you click on OK, an email goes out to the vendor saying that we are planning to pay or we are ready to pay these invoices. So it's a typical vendor remittance report that each vendor receives. So if you have 10 different vendors on this worksheet, a separate email goes to each vendor showing them what they are going to be paid. So I'm going to keep it to PDF just so it does not go out right now. And then once that step is done, you're then able to generate the electronic file, which is the ACH file. So for people living in the US, this is your ACH, the typical NACHA format that your banks provide, and we have inbuilt NACHA formats, so we don't need to configure the system for generating NACHA files. It's already inbuilt in Microsoft Business Central, which makes it very easy for you to start making these payments on day one. So here's just a quick overview of what you're looking to pay, and all that you have to do is click on this button, and the file gets generated out, okay, to your local folder. And here's a, a quick a peek of how the NACHA file will look like, right? And then you're able to take this file and then upload it in your bank portal, and the payment happened at the bank. So once everything goes through file, the last step that you will do is to post your journal, and you're closing the loop by making this payment to this vendor. So that's a quick overview of your purchasing cycle. But during this cycle, we touched on different modules, very fluid, going into inventory. We saw an update on the sales side. We looked into the financial updates and also the payment side. Now, going back to the sales cycle that we start with, remember we start with the sales order and we wanted to plan buying the inventory. Now that we have the inventory available, we should be able to fulfill this with a shipment and an invoice. So I'm opening up the sales order. I can confirm what quantity that we are going to be shipping them. Again, the same concept also applies here, depending on the on your team. For people having a smaller team, you're able to do a quick shipping process, which is to do it all on the same screen. Like you can post the shipment from the same screen by clicking on this quick button here, or you have the option to create a warehouse shipment, which is to create a much detailed entry that provides information of what item to ship, what serial number to ship, and about the bank directly on the reconciliation. Yes. So the possibility to integrate the BC system to bank directly, I think this question probably is because I was showing you the file is being exported into the system, and then we're going to manually use this file to upload into the bank portal. So yes, that's the typical, or let's say the standard solution, but you have a system that can also, I mean, we have a system that we can integrate to the bank directly, which needs an integration development to happen between the bank and the BC system, and we have several clients do that. So we need to have the bank on board with this process, and they will be able to help us on how we can connect the system through the API to their portal. So when you click a button, rather than the file being downloaded to your system, it's going to go straight into their bank portal. So it cuts down, a couple of manual steps that you have to download and upload. It goes straight to the bank, and also maybe we can minimize the fraudulent activity of a potential update to the file that's being downloaded. So that's a great solution that also can be in place, but it has its effort of the integration to the bank. I hope that answered that question. So back to the sales order. We talked about a simple shipment process versus the warehouse shipment, which gives you more options to create an extensive warehouse entry to provide a lot of details, including serial number or lot number and so forth. So again, depending on the team size and the segregation of duty, you can choose to use one of these two options and post the transaction. Again, similar approach here, you're able to post a shipment and also the invoice. And once the invoice is posted, let me take you to the posted sales invoice page. It creates an archive of all the invoices that you post against the customer and the orders, and you have the option to send the invoice via email. and that would open up the option to integrate with your Outlook and send the email out. So additional options that that I think it's worth to mention is we can create some canned text as a body of the email saying like, dear customer, please find your invoice attached. Here's a total dollar amount, and you can include the payment terms, everything on that email. So it becomes a fully um, a fully informed email with all the details to the customer. There's also the flag on the list to say whether it's email or not by looking into the printed column. So once it's emailed, this is going to be incrementing, so you'd know that it's already been emailed out to the customer. Okay. Also, there are options to send reminders or let's say dunning letters if the invoice is not paid on time, right from the same screen. You have other options at the top to do that. But this is the list of all the posted sales invoices. It keeps a log of all the invoices and also the status of whether it is open or closed. You can see from this section here. And let's take a point. One moment. Yeah, let's take a moment to talk about filters, because any page that you get into is more like a list page. It gives you a lot of analysis points, right? So not necessarily that you'd be only coming into this page to create a transaction or post, but for analysis as well, right? So when you are on a page like this, like a list page, and you'd like to know how many sales invoices you have posted to customer ABC, or how many invoices of them are being open or closed, you can run these inquiries on the page using this filter. Okay, this is a simple yet very powerful filter option that you can see pretty much on all the screens across Business Central. That comes very handy. I'm going to give you a quick demo of this. So let's say I want to do a quick inquiry of all invoices that are for this customer School of Fine Art, right? So I can create a filter by picking the customer number as the filter option and say School of Fine Art. And you can see the system quickly filters to all the invoices for that customer. So this is one way of doing it. Even better, you can just click on a line. Let's say this customer called Relay Cloud, and at the top, there's an option called filter to this value, right? So, and the system is able to look into the line that's selected in the background and then filters to that value. And there we go, right? So it again cuts down a couple of steps, opening up a filter list like this and adding the customer name. So this is probably the better or the easier way to do it for you. Uh, while this list, is very helpful in a way you can add like nested filters. For example, I want to do an analysis on customer number so and so, where the amount is greater than $1,000, right? I think pretty much everything is $1,000 here. Let's say for example, $10,000. So I can use arithmetic operations, and there we go. You can have a quick list of the filtered list without having you to do any Excel related functions to get the same result. So that's where your filters become very handy. You can add nested filters, like you can also include another filter where you can say um, the flag closed is no. Okay, so this is to show you if there are any invoices for this customer that's greater than $1,000, which is not closed yet, right? And you can remove the filters one by one if you want to go back in the analysis. And the best part of this one is that you can still export this to Excel, right? Nobody's going to get away from Excel. Excel is going to be the best, the analysis, it's a very handy solution. We don't want to leave Excel at all. So Excel is very much integrated into every page of Business Central. So for folks who like Excel, you're able to quickly export to Excel with a click of a button. It exports the report for you. Whatever you see on this page is exported out in a very good format. I'm going to show you right now. It's opening up on my screen. I think I have to share my other screen. Just one moment. Right. So this is the Excel that just got downloaded, and you can see that the format looks pretty good, right? It has the alternate colors for easy visibility. You have the headers already um, included. It comes along with the filters opened up. So it pretty much gives you a ready to go format for your further analysis, right? And from here, I typically do a pivot table, by the document number or the date and do further analysis that I'd like to do with an Excel. So for any quick management reporting, this is a great tool that I suggest. We don't have to, build a report in Business Central. That's what I feel personally working on a solution like Business Central. When someone asks me for a report to build, we don't really need to build a report because the information is very handy that you're able to do analysis on the pages using these filters and quickly export it out. So the best part of this one is if you'd like to keep this as a living report, meaning as a dynamic report that you want to keep following on what's happening on this customer on the posted documents, you can save this view as opposed to entering this filter every single time. You can save the view by just clicking on that save button here and say, a datum greater than 1,000, something like that, right? So save it um, with your own string name for you to easily pick up that report. And when you get out of that screen and then go back into the sales invoice screen, you still see all your saved views. And with a click of a button, you will then be able to see the report that is dynamically run at that point in time. Okay. So I want to emphasize that this is not a snapshot of what you had built. This is like an ongoing view of this customer. So if you run this like a couple of months later, it might not be the same lines, right? You might maybe seeing a few lines, actually a lot more lines because this is archive data. So right now it might be showing 20 lines, maybe a few months it might be showing a 50 lines, right? So this is a dynamic report, which is a really handy tool for analysis. And this feature is again available almost on any list page that you can go into. So you really don't need any reports to build in Business Central, right? So I think that's a good overview of the various modules for basic transactions, on sales orders, purchase orders, inventory, payment. Maybe we should also include one topic for today, which is deposits, right? Um, so when you receive a deposit from the customer, you can do multiple ways of depositing the entry from the customer. You can do a traditional approach where you do a bank deposit. You can pick the customer, put in the dollar amount, apply the line manually, and so forth, if you like that approach. But what's better in today's world is to run the function called payment reconciliation journal, where you're able to integrate your bank to the Business Central system and then import the bank transactions and let the system to do an automatic matching and posting, right? Sounds really fancy, but that's exactly what the system does, right? So I'm going to show you a quick walkthrough of this one. So you're in a payment reconciliation journal. It's nothing but a journal page. But what's good about this function is you're able to import the bank transaction. So if your system is integrated to bank, when you click on this button, it's going to give you options of what is the date range that you'd like to import the bank statement. So you can put in the date range, let's say this week or this month, and you say yes to that, and it's going to bring in all the lines. Okay, this is a demo system, so I don't have the lines, but it's going to look something like this, right? I'm simulating on how the lines would look like when you run your bank transaction. So in this case, we have about 6, 7 lines here for transactions that came from various customers, and this is a bank text that says probably the customer's name or the invoice name, depending on how you're mapping the system to the transaction data from the bank. So this one gives an example of the customer's name and the invoice for which the customer has paid and the amount that was received at the bank, right? So these are bank transaction lines. Once you import these transactions, what you can do further is run this function called apply automatically. And this does the magic for you, where it looks into the customer's ledgers on all the open transactions, and it tries to apply to those invoices automatically, um, giving you the details of where it applied and what's the confidence of application, right? So again, it is understandable that the system cannot do a full confidence matching, but it does its best to match the line. And you can see here the confidence levels by the system on each line. So this one says a high confidence, probably because it was able to match exactly to the same dollar amount as the invoice. And you can see on the line who's the customer that it has matched to, and what's the dollar amount that it has matched to, and so forth. And if you click on that confidence, it provides you the reasoning why it is a high match, a high confidence match. It tells you that the party's name fully matched, document number probably not fully matched, but the number of entries with the dollar amount, there's a perfect one match. So, and that's why it's a high confidence. Versus there is another one here called medium confidence, probably because there are more than one document with the same dollar amount. So the system is not too sure and is giving you an option to, giving you a reminder to double check to ensure it is indeed the right document that it is matching to. Because you might have two invoices with the same dollar amount, right? And you want to ensure it is properly applied to the oldest document or the right document number. So these are simple cues the system gives you for you to um, validate its application, and then finally you're able to post the payments. So when you click on this button, it is going to go ahead and then post all the payments or the deposits, and also close the invoices that are applied in the background. So that I feel, or all of our customers feel, is a lot of help. A lot of time will be saved in this process with a couple of buttons, because it cuts down the time to manually enter the deposit. It cuts down the time of application. It cuts down the time of looking up the ledger and so forth in a simple couple of steps that what you just saw. So once you post the documents, the payments and invoices are closed, and the financial transactions automatically happen in the background. Okay. So to whatever we have seen so far is a very high level demo to give you the feel of the navigation in the system on very basic transactions. There's definitely a lot more that we can do in Business Central, custom to your requirement, based on some configurations we can turn on and off, which is where CaptiveX come in picture, and consultants can help you to take the right configuration points with best practices. So the final topic for today is to take a quick sneak peek of the financials, and I personally like the chart of accounts to start with, right? There are a ton of reports again on the financials. You can run financial reports, trial balance, dimensional balances, and so forth. But your chart of accounts could be the best place to start with, in my opinion, because this is not merely a chart of accounts. It gives you a lot more details. The best thing I like about the chart of accounts function in Business Central is that you're just not able to see the accounts in the dollars, but you can drill down to the number, the dollar amounts, to see the transactions behind it. Okay, so it gives me the explanation of the dollar amount, and I can click that line further to see the source transaction. So I'm clicking on a posted sales invoice. I can see that by looking at the document number, and I'm trying to drill down one level further down to see if I can get to the source transaction, and it does work. So it shows me the related entries of that one specific line. So it says there's a GL entry associated, there's a tax entry associated, there's a ledger that's associated, and so forth. And what you'd like to see. I'd like to see the source sales invoice. So I click on that line and it takes me straight into the posted sales invoice document from where that GL entry got posted, enabling me to see the customer information, the inventory or the items and the quantity information right from the chart of accounts page. So again, want to bring up the point of the fluidity and the navigational features that lets you to do a better analysis in a system which is business central for you. What you can do even further better is you have your analysis page, which is the account summary page. And this is more like a pivoting tool that you are used to an Excel sheet and very intuitive for you. And I say it's intuitive because everybody is used to the pivot table, and it's another pivot table option, but which is more powerful, right? And I can do my pivoting here, as you can see. This one is pivoted to show the balances by account category and the balance. I can maybe see it by, for example, the income statement and the balance sheet numbers. Just a quick check to ensure that my balance sheet is equal to income statement. So balance sheet and equity is equal to the income statement, right? So I can just do a quick check on that. If I'd like to see it by account category, I can add that point, add that pivot on top of it. And I can drill down one level further to see under the income statement, how do you want to, what is the breakdown looking like by income, cost of goods sold, expense, and these numbers, right? So very, very useful and powerful analysis tools that you can find within the Business Central system. And then you can maybe create another analysis just to see it by a different view. And you can keep building your analysis points, not just that one time, but you can save them. So the next time when you open your chart of accounts, you can see the same set of analysis. And the very important point that I haven't mentioned so far is these analysis points that you create in the system are personalized, right? So when I am using it, it's just for me. Okay. When someone else is using it, it is their own views. It's not going to globalize, that might create confusion between the users because the users um, are always getting a personalized and a customized feel of the system, creating this analysis points just for themselves. Okay, we mentioned about the aspect of a role tailored system, which is exactly the Business Central system. It is by role and it is very personalized to the user who is using the system. I think it's a point of another question that we just have received, which is a great question as well. So, what is the use of Business Central? Power BI. What is the use of Power BI in Business Central? Because we talked also about Power BI, which is a great integration tool. And for many of you in this call, you might have heard Power BI as a great reporting tool. So when you have all these analysis points, where can Power BI help? So Power BI is actually much more powerful, right? Because what you see in here are system provided options to do analysis. Power BI is actually a custom solution. It is a very custom solution where you can connect the tables one to another with a common element and then do some analysis. So for people who want a much more custom reporting to see, for example, your GL balances by a specific expense and what the quantity of the expense is, you're able to connect the purchase module and the finance module using Power BI to provide a better reporting. So Power BI definitely is a great solution as well for people to do a more complex reporting, but again with the ease of use. With the direct integration that's available between these two systems without any further developments. So I think that's about what we had planned for today.